just finished The Reckoning, and I'm dropping the series. Here's the thing. Zodiac Academy had so much going for it. It had such great potential, but it just let me down. Like, it just let me down. I thought, like, in The Awakening, the very first book, I thought it was just a slow start, but that trend continued in the second book, Ruthless Fae, and now in the third book, it's the standard, that's the norm. I can barely detect a plot in these books. It's like the plot is 10% of the book. The 80% of these books is simply the characters and the relationships to each other. And it's such a shame. It's a shame because they actually have a good world. The world is good. The world is interesting. They gave this series, Zodiac Academy, such a crazy and interesting world, but the authors just refuse to explore it. They just have chosen to give, like, again, an outstanding world, an outstanding background, but then just say completely fuck this, and then just focus on Tori and Darcy getting bullied and relationship development between the bullies and them, and Orion and Darcy. And it's just a shame. It's such a shame. They could have skipped including that everyone was Fae and then additionally had an order. They could have skipped that there was a power struggle for the throne. They could have skipped so much. This book, considering how much they're spending on the relationships and the characters, it could have literally been just like an average high school book. Like, honestly, they didn't even have to necessarily include the magic. That's how little they're focusing on the world and the different orders and the specific rules for each order and so on and so forth. It's a shame, really. It's a disappointment. I just had a bit late. That's on me. I think 400 pages into The Reckoning. That's when it just kind of clicked in my brain that it just clicked in my brain, and I asked myself, what the fuck am I reading? Because there's no plot. There's no plot. It just clicked in my brain, like, what am I reading? And I couldn't, at that point, 450 pages in, I could not tell you what the hell it was that I was reading. It was just chapter after chapter of everyday life, of getting bullied here and there. Some plans are plotted and some revenge from Tori and Darcy's side. And it's bad. Not that the authors are bad. I cannot imagine that the authors, this was clearly a choice they made to not focus on the world. But it's such a shame that they didn't. It would have been, I think the series would have been so much more enjoyable if they did. I mean, just for example, the Vampire Order. They have several rules apparently for when for how they engage with their source. They need to protect the source and so on. Generally, also just explore more of the orders. Go a bit further into Geraldine's Kerberos order. She eats poisonous flowers in order to recharge her energy. Go into more to the extinct orders that we now found out one of is the Phoenix. Give more attention to the world as a whole. I'm disappointed, really. At some point today, mentioned towards the end of the book, maybe the last 150 pages, again, Orion and Darius are having a conversation where Darius says, hey, Xavier is safe. My mom took him out into the human world, so Lionel can't access him for the reckoning. And when he said that, I remembered that we mentioned before that Lionel was going to use Xavier as something, and we find out it's to sacrifice him for something, and that was what happened to Stella last time. I remember then that was a thing. I'm just disappointed because the authors have shown us this. They're giving us teases, whispers of this awesome world that is Zodiac Academy, with all the orders and beings and the stuff like that, the powers. But then they're saying, no, you may not access this. You may not read about this. I'm not going to write about this. And it's disappointing. I dare say that a good 70 pages of each Zodiac Academy book did not even have to be there. I get, again, for just the awakening, I can understand that you really need to, that the authors perhaps really wanted to show these are the four heirs and look at all the way they're making Tori and Darcy suffer. I could have completely accepted that for the first book. I just like to really give the nuance, like, all good, fine. But the trend just continues in book 2 and 3, and there's no, it's just the same thing, rinse and repeat, really. It really is. The second book's difference was, the only difference in the second book was that the Darcy and the Tori fought back. That's it. Otherwise, it's still rinse and repeat, and that really, really came to the forefront in the reckoning. Since there was a point where the heirs found out that Darcy and Tori were pranking them or biting back, essentially, and their response to this is to gear up and double down on them, to continue to try to harm them. And that's when it kind of also, again, clicked for me that this is just going to be a cycle. There's no out of the cycle. They're going to continue to torture the Vega twins, and Darcy and Tori are going to continue fight back in what ways they can. And it's not going to stop. That's just going to go on and on and on. There has been no sign that any one of the heirs or Tori and Darcy are thinking like, let's somehow put an end to this. And yes, part of it can be subscribed to the nature of the Fae, that they will do anything, as explained in the Reckoning, when they're like met with the stars, with the stars, that a Fae will do anything to sustain or carve out their place in Solaria. But for the love of God, forever, you're just going to be like a raging, hateful asshole in the case of the heirs, or just like eternally fight back in the case of Tori and Darcy. That's going to be in your academy life for the next 2.5 years. The Reckoning does end on a bit of a, I'm not gonna say a full cliffhanger, but again, the only reason they survive is because their orders are phoenix. They're phoenixes, and so they survived the dark magic thing that Lionel put them through. So we have that their order emerged, they're phoenixes, they're somehow now tainted by black magic, the fifth element, and Orion, Darius, Lionel, Stella, and a bunch of other random ass people have it too. And we want to know how it continues, but it's like, again, this book is also roughly 600 pages long, roughly 630 pages long. And for 620 pages, I want to say maybe 100 in total. 100 of those pages were like plot worthy, like actually moved the story forward, rather than it was just simply like the daily life of Tori and Darcy. Or like, again, a little bit from Orion's perspective, Caleb, Seth, and so on and so forth. And then the end, the last roughly 20 pages were like, oh, happenings. I know that the next book is going to be just like this. This trend has continued for 3 books now. The next book, it's Dark Princesses, I believe. It's going to be roughly 600 pages, and it's going to contain at most 100 pages of actually moving the story forward. And it's a shame. It's a fucking shame. Like, my personal taste, I do like a good world, like a good magical world, and I do also want to see like the personal relationships. And it's not like I'm saying that the other 500 pages of the Zodiac Academy books are completely like just trash or anything. You do need to portray some of the daily lives, but I don't believe in having 500 pages of that. Like, it's no, the reader will get the point. You could have formatted it in another way. It's a shame. There's no real, like on that point, on how long the books are and there being not like very, very little plot to it, I'm not going to say that the authors did a bad job or anything, because this was simply a choice that they made. They chose to write the book this way. I can't imagine anything else. So I can't like give critique on that point. It's not my taste, but I can imagine that many others would have the same taste as me. And some others will probably think these books are great because they want to see the bullying or the development of the bare minimum development of the relationships and so on and so forth. It's just a bit tragic. It's a bit disappointing. It's tragic. I would have the reason. So I do cold reads. I don't like to know anything about the books before I start reading them. That's how I like to read. And I'm in a book group on Facebook, and there's like constantly book recommendations from people asking for book recommendations and so on and so forth. And in this group was the first time that I bumped into Zodiac Academy. I just read the name Zodiac Academy. I can't even recall what context it was in, if it was a recommendation and if they tagged like, oh, spicy or whatever. But I remember just seeing Zodiac Academy and instantly I was hooked, because I recall this like Zodiac Academy. I really like the moon. I'm even wearing a necklace with my little crescent moon. I really like the moon, the night sky, the stars. I just think it's beautiful. Like, just imagine, just something so beautiful exists naturally in this planet, on this planet, above this planet. And it's really beautiful. I also had a period in my life where I was really into astrology, and I would look up like, oh, I'm a Virgo, let's see what characteristics I have, and let's see what houses, and so on and so forth. So when I heard the title Zodiac Academy, to me it was a clear like, oh my god, I hope it's like related to the stars. They're gonna maybe even have characters like that are true to their astrology sign, so their moon sign, ascendant, and so on and so forth. And I was really excited. And then reading it, it does have elements of that, but not at all what I imagined. And that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I wasn't disappointed or anything. But that was the start of how I decided to read Zodiac Academy. And again, the world they created, magical, beautiful. I just wish that the authors had decided to dive into it more. That's it. Caroline Peckham, Suzanne Valenti. I love the world you created, but goddamn, I wish you'd explored it more. From a reader to an author, to authors. I wish you'd explored the world more.